Once again, we have gathered here in this beautiful room in the midst of San Miguel, and here in the virtual space of Zoom.
Una vez más, nos hemos reunido aquí en esta hermosa sala en medio de San Miguel, y aquí en el espacio virtual de Zoom.
We come together as a way of supporting each other and as a way of connecting to the best within ourselves as we embrace the challenges and the blessings of life's journey.
Nos unimos como una forma de apoyarnos unos a otros y como una forma de conectarnos con lo mejor de nosotros mismos mientras aceptamos los desafíos y la bendición del viaje de la vida.
We come together in ritual and song, in spoken words and silent thought that reminds us of the values and principles that encourage a good life and a more just world.
Nos reunimos en rituales y canciones, en palabras habladas y pensamientos silenciosos, que nos recuerda los valores y principios que fomentan una buena vida y un mundo más justo.
As we do each week, we enter this sacred time by lighting a single flame.
Como lo hacemos cada semana, entramos en este tiempo sagrado encendiendo una sola llama.
This flame symbolizes the truth we know and the truth we seek.
Esta llama simboliza la verdad que conocemos y la verdad que buscamos.
The community we share and the community we aspire to be.
La comunidad que compartimos y la comunidad que aspiramos ser.
The learning and knowledge that gives us answers, and the mystery that allows us to question and appreciate the wonder of all that we do not know.
El aprendizaje y el conocimiento que nos dan respuestas, así como el misterio que nos permite cuestionar y apreciar la maravilla de todo lo que desconocemos.
We gather here to embrace this light.
Nos reunimos aquí para abrazar esta luz.
I now invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 360 in the great hymnal. The words will also appear on the screen, and Malcolm will help lead us in song with Liz at the piano.
Here we have gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word. May all who speak here feel they have been heard. Sing Life has its battles, sorrows and regrets, but in the shadows, let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us as we give, we gain. Sing now in friendship this our heart's own song.
Please be seated.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Canepa, and I'm a member of the Sunday Service Committee, and I will be our lay service leader today. I am very happy to announce that today's speaker is our own Mark Johaningsmeir, a retired United Methodist minister who served congregations in Minnesota and Colorado. Luckily for us, in 2010, he moved to San Miguel de Allende, where he lives with his wife, Judith Jenya, along with several dogs, several cats, and a pond full of koi. Our flowers today are provided by Jerry Rossing and will be brought to a member chosen by the care team. And if you would like to help provide flowers for our services, you can see our head usher, Diana Weiner. Diana, where are you? She's back out there. Okay. Diana, come wave. There she is. You can see her if you would like to provide flowers. Thanks, Diana. A couple of announcements. After the service, those on Zoom are invited to stay connected so you can visit with others for discussion in the main room. And those who are here with us at the Aldea can join us for coffee and cookies, which will be back in this room for the first time since the pandemic. So, that is wonderful. Now, if we have any visitors here today, would you please stand so that we can all look around and see who you are and personally invite you to coffee hour afterwards? Yay! Thank you. Oh, and more over here. Take a look. We're slow. Thanks. And if there are any visitors on Zoom, please write your name and where you're from in the chat box, and that way we can personally greet you after the service. Also, we want you to know that we do record our services. And to see them, you just go to our website, that's UUFSMA.org, and on the top, you click on Services, and there's a drop-down menu, and then click on Previous Services, and you can see any. And while you're at the website, please check out any of the many events that we are sponsoring, small group meetings, and information on how to become a member. So now, I invite you all to join together in reciting this fellowship's unique covenant. Please rise in body or spirit. We will do it first in English and then in Spanish. Let me see. Do you want to do Spanish? Okay, I'll lead in English, and then Hillary will lead in Spanish. The words will appear on the screen momentarily. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Please be seated. We now enter into what is truly a very sacred time in our service. It's a time when members and friends share significant joys, sorrows, and concerns with their community. For each that we share, we light a candle representing that thought, or that prayer, or that person is held by all of us in community this morning. If you would like a joy, sorrow, or concern shared in an upcoming service, it's best to email it to me ahead of time, or if you're on Zoom right now, you can go ahead and type it into the chat. Our first, joy, I think, but combination. As you know, many people get away from San Miguel in May, and lots of our members are traveling this month. So several of you asked for a candle wishing safe travels and speedy returns to all those who flee San Miguel for May or whatever. I'd like to light another candle of support for Donna Sherbert. I've heard reports that in the rehab back in the States that she's playing games. So that sounds like a good sign to me. And Donna, we just want you to know that we're all with you and we're all supporting you. I'd like to light a third candle for our own Deanna Amaya, who continues to struggle with mental health issues and remains on leave from her job at the Fellowship. We're hopeful that she is now receiving care in San Luis Potosi that will really help her. We as a fellowship are trying to do all that we can to help her on that path to recovery so that she can be ready to resume her regular job schedule soon. So please hold Deanna in your thoughts and in your prayers, and if you have the opportunity, send her your good wishes too. Again this week, and almost every week, here in the United States, we have seen more mass shootings in the U.S., more gun violence. Gun violence is truly a pandemic, and it's reaching other countries now, probably from our example as U.S. citizens. And of course, there's gun violence here in Mexico, even in San Miguel, too. So let's light a candle for the victims, but as many of you might have heard Senator Warnock, the Reverend Senator Warnock, say this week on the Senate floor, prayers are not enough. Indeed, in his words, prayers on this subject without action makes a mockery of prayer. So let us commit to the action to do what we can to bring about sensible gun legislation. Yes, the problem is complex, but guns, the availability of them, whether it's the types of weapons that are available or the people who are allowed to have them, is something that any sensible person can agree to regulate and can save untold numbers of lives. We light our blue, Kathy has one. Please, Kathy, maybe you have more than one. These are the ones that came in.
We have a joy from our visitor, Lynn, who says, I am finally visiting my best friend after 3 years of COVID.
We have a joy on Zoom. It's a thank you to our tech team for making this wonderful service possible on Zoom. And one from Kirsten reminding us of the ecological danger and the harm to indigenous people that still continues in our world. Now we light our blue candle once again for all those who have died and suffered in any way as a result of the unjust and unprovoked war in Ukraine. And now a final candle for all those joys, sorrows, and concerns held deep in our hearts, but which remain unspoken this morning. Also, again this morning, we offer you an opportunity to personally light a candle in silence if you're here. It might be a personal way to remember someone, to witness and honor a personal struggle, to add significance to a silent prayer held in your heart this morning, or just light your own candle of hope and healing for the community and for the world. As we continue in our time of reflection and prayer, guided by beautiful music from Liz, those who would like to are invited forward to light a candle in silence.
Good morning. Liz, thank you. Thank you for the Schumann. I invite you to pick up one of the gray hymnals and turn towards the back and find the reading that is numbered 558. I invite you to stand if you are willing and able. I'm going to read, let's see, I can't see the color. There it is. Yes, I'm going to read the blue, except I'm reading black and white in the hymnal. If you look up here, you'll see the colors. I'm going to read and then ask you to read the words in the brown. For everything, there is a season, a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to care and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time for war, and a time for peace. Yes. Thank you. This morning, my topic is forgiveness. I chose that and then started to figure out what in the world I was going to say. And I started reading, I started thinking, and I realized how much confusion there is, how fraught that word, that simple word seems to be. It's full of unclear meanings, contradictory meanings, a lot of fuzziness we carry around in our heads. Well, here is a forgiveness story. Matthew was 16 years old when his father took him to a colleague who was a psychotherapist who claimed that he could make gays turn straight. Matthew grew up in the wealthy suburbs outside of New York City. He was a part of a traditional Jewish, close-knit family. And when his sexuality began to emerge in puberty, he knew he was attracted to boys. He also knew immediately that he had to guard this as a secret. None of his friends could know. Now, in his junior year, he was driving down in the center of town. He was at a stoplight when he spotted a couple of guys from school, a couple of toughs, bullies. Well, he was feeling cocky at that moment, and as they crossed the street in front of him, he yelled out, "You fucking faggots!" An hour and a half later, he was in the emergency room being treated for head wounds. His nose was broken in 6 places. His family was supportive. They pressed charges. The boys were charged and convicted, expelled from school. There was a restraining order placed on them. And then Matthew's face healed. But he believed deep down he really was defective, having no masculinity, he thought. He came out to his father, and his father said, "I love you, no matter what. I will always support you." But then his father set up this appointment with that therapist who was going to turn him straight. These were years of hard, mixed messages. I love you, but change. Finally, Matthew said, enough. He was estranged from his father. His family imploded. The marriage split up. And it was not until several years later that young Matthew, the adult, reached out to his father again. And he told him, "You know, I've tried. I've met all of these impressive masculine role models. I've received kindness and support of various kinds. And now, this is me. This is who I am. This is who you've got. I'm gay and I'm out." Well, his father launched into another one of his old arguments about caring for him and being worried about the future for him. And Matthew didn't take the bait. He just listened this time, waited for him to finish. And then he gave his father a hug and a kiss, and he said, "I know who I am. I know what the world is like. I'm going to have a good life, a beautiful life." And his father looked at him and said, "Okay." That's a forgiveness story. The word did not appear in the story, but that's what was going on. This is a story among dozens of stories in a website and organization called the Forgiveness Project. You can find it. You can find the people who started this. You can see all of these memoir pieces, fragments of experiences that people have had dealing with issues, real life issues around forgiveness. There was a woman who confronted the man who killed her mother. There was a man dealing with his ex-wife who had cheated on him. Someone betrayed by his business partner. And it was story after story after story. You might want to just check that out. These are amazing experiences told in just a few words. Now, there's no guarantee that any of these stories are going to come out neatly. There's no guarantee that there will be a nice, neat, happy ending to a story, but many of them are. But it's normal in messy, real-life situations that the question of forgiveness arises. Will I forgive or not? Will I be forgiven or not? I want to share another story. Simon Wiesenthal was a young architect. He was working in western Ukraine when Nazi forces occupied the country. They began rounding up Jews, putting them into cattle cars and shipping them to concentration camps. Simon was one of them. During World War II, he was interned in 5 different concentration camps. And he also escaped once, only to be recaptured. One afternoon, in what turned out to be the last months of the war, Simon was on a work detail cleaning up a medical waste dump. It was next to a temporary field hospital, a site where they were shipping in badly wounded German soldiers from the Russian front. Well, a nurse from that clinic hospital approached Simon, and with a nod from a guard, the nurse led him to a young German soldier lying on a stretcher on the ground. His head was bandaged. It was blackened with old blood and reddened with new, and there were signs of infection all around. He was not going to last long. But this young soldier was desperate to talk with a Jew, any Jew. The young stormtrooper had taken part in an action in a village on the Eastern Front, a village where they thought the people were hiding Jews and resistance fighters. The soldier said, "We herded all the Jews we could find into this one house. Then we doused the floor and the walls with gasoline and locked every door with the people inside and set it aflame. Some were close enough to a window that they broke the glass and jumped, only to be machine gunned before they hit the ground. Men, women, children. That's the story that this young, dying soldier was telling. And he had been a willing and active participant. But now he knew he was dying. And these atrocities were weighing on him heavily. So he was begging for a Jew to hear his confession, a Jew who could offer him forgiveness. The young man stretched out his hand to Simon. Simon took his hand, stared in this man's eyes, and pulled back and stepped away, leaving the unforgivable unforgiven. Now, this is a real story. This has probably a lot more drama than any of the stories you will ever experience around forgiveness. But I want you to think about this. If that were you, what would you do? If you were in Simon's shoes, hearing this story and receiving that request for forgiveness, what would you do? Now, I want to do just a little exercise. I would like to find out, those of you, if you were in that position and hearing that request, I'd like you to raise your hand if you would have offered forgiveness. Any hands? Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. And those here, had you been in that situation, would you have refused to offer forgiveness? How many hands? Okay. I'm not going to tell you the right answer. This is for you and for me to ponder our own life and lives, our past and our futures, and recognize there may come a time, it may sneak up on us when we are in a position like that. Hannah Arendt was a 20th century philosopher. She narrowly escaped Nazi-occupied France, but made it to freedom. She observed that when one person harms another, there is a normal, automatic, human response, and that is to respond in kind, to try to inflict at least as much pain as you had received. Call it revenge. Call it getting even, retaliation, vengeance. Something between two people can escalate so easily into a feud between two families, between two clans, two tribes, two races, religions, nations. That is the normal, natural, automatic human response, which always triggers an equal or similar reaction. And it's the situation where it will spiral. It will keep on, it will keep reinforcing itself until nothing is left. Now, Hannah Arendt, this philosopher, said, there is one thing, and one thing only, that can interrupt this kind of spiral. And that is for one person to stand up and say, I forgive, instead of perpetuating that circle of violence and hatred. She said, apart from that, we will just keep on keeping on in that deadly way that is truly a dead end. No exit. As I indicated earlier, I've been I've been reading lots of stuff since I committed myself to saying something about this topic. Some were theological, some philosophical, some were psychological, sociological analyses. Well, what I want to do now is share just a few things that I've learned that I think I know is right and helpful. First, what is it? Forgiveness is a free choice to let go of resentment, anger, hostility towards somebody who harmed you and harmed you deeply. Forgiveness is not minimizing what happened. Forgiveness is not making excuses for what the other did to you. Forgiveness recognizes that this person, this one who did this to you, is still just another human being. And seeing that, forgiveness leads a person to, at the very least, treat that other decently. Forgiveness is not an agreement to return to things as if nothing had happened. Forgiveness is not about, I lost my thought. Forgiveness gives one person the option. Forgiving gives the forgiver the option of saying, I forgive you, and I will never see you again. That's okay. I know that in some religious settings, some other settings, the assumption is, well, if you forgive, you'll just go back to the way things were. No. You know better than that, don't you? The forgiver has the option of setting very clear boundaries and saying, I forgive you, and I will not let you hurt me in these ways. The role of the forgiver is actually quite powerful. It gives you a choice. It gives you power. Nobody can make you do it. Nobody can compel you. Jodi Picoult is a contemporary novelist, and in her story, The Storyteller, forgiving is one of the subjects. And she writes, forgiving isn't something you do for somebody else. It's something you do for yourself. It's saying, you, the offender, you are not important enough to have a stranglehold on me. It's saying, you don't get to trap me in the past. I'm worthy of a future. Another person Susan Montana is a screenwriter. She's an author. She's a public speaker. And in her TED talk, she said, "Forgiveness is designed to set you free. When you say, 'I forgive you,' what you're really saying is, 'I know that what you did is not okay. But I recognize that you are more than that action.' I don't want to hold you or you and me captive to this thing, whatever it was that happened. I don't want to hold you captive to this thing anymore. I can heal myself," she said, "and I don't need a thing from you." That's another way to describe the process. Good people, ordinary people, get caught and see themselves as having no way out. They see themselves as victims and don't know where to go with that. They believe that it's not their job to forgive. They know it's hard. It's too hard. That it's not fair. But that's the way it is. And there is a way out of the prison cells that we find ourselves in. And if and when you act on it, you see that the door has always been open. May it be so for you and for me. Now, I'd like you to take the hymnal again and find "Break Not the Circle." It's number 323. I invite you to stand and we'll sing together.
Our offering words are adapted from Kristen Collins. We give to remind ourselves of how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music, in sacred spaces, and in justice in the world. We give with the faith that together we have enough. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Thank you, Mark, for your inspiring and insightful words this morning. And Liz, thank you for sharing many of our spiritually inspiring piano favorites. And thank you all for being part of this morning's service. We'll hope you'll join us again next week, either right here in this room of the Allende or with us on Zoom. We're thrilled that today we'll have our coffee hour, as Kathy told you, in the room. So please be sure to join us for coffee if you're here, and if you're on Zoom, stay for a time of sharing. We know many folks are leaving San Miguel this time of year, and we remind you that our services and many of our activities of this fellowship are available to you no matter where you are on Zoom. So don't be a stranger, even if you're physically away. Malcolm and I will be leaving this week to drive to our lake cottage in Massachusetts. I hope to get a bit of rest and renewal this summer, but the ministry of this fellowship will continue even if I'm physically away. For part of the time, I'll be available by phone and email, and will still be doing much of my work remotely. In addition, you will have a couple of wonderful guest ministers this summer. Tanya Marquez will be leading 2 Sunday worship services in July via Zoom, and I am thrilled that Louise Green will be physically back here in San Miguel for a month, beginning the last week in July. And not only doing services, but handling pastoral matters and perhaps other things as well, so I can really take some time totally away. I hope to concentrate on my work this summer for the fellowship on a couple of important special projects, and I hope to have more information. We'll all have more information about those soon. You know, once again, we've spent a wonderful hour together. Mark has challenged us to recognize where we've fallen short and are in need of forgiveness, and where we have held back forgiveness. May we be more forgiving and more forgiven. May we let go of our anger and hate, and may love and joy fill our days. And may that love which overcomes all difference, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. We now extinguish this flame, the flame we together kindled at the start of our service, but not the light. We carry that with us as our guide in the week ahead, and may peace be with you till we meet again.